losers, Northern Chipmunk here with lesson 1 of AS Communication and Culture, Introduction to Culture. What is culture? Well, apparently, culture can be understood as the ways of life we value, follow and share with others. Examples of this include the clothes we wear, such as pyjamas or a shirt and tie, the food we eat, like a full English breakfast or a birthday cake, the language we use, such as the Queen's English or slang, the hobbies we pursue, like playing football or going shopping, the arts and entertainment we both produce and consume, such as Shakespeare or X Factor, the belief systems we follow, like Christianity, Islam, atheism, the law and ethics we obey, such as the difference between right and wrong and what is fair or unfair, the habits we adopt, like queuing at a bus stop or brushing our teeth in the morning, the customs we uphold, such as shaking hands or saying please and thank you, the traditions we maintain, like celebrating the new year or going away on holiday in the summer. It is essential to remember and appreciate, however, that all countries and communities follow many different ways of life, according to their age, gender, ethnicity, sexuality, nationality, social class, profession, education level. For example, many Jamaicans enjoy eating goat's head soup. Teenagers often use slang when communicating with one another. Men generally don't wear skirts or dresses and all that. These cultures and subcultures are of equal value to our owner, however, and rather than be ignored, considered strange, or even mocked, they should instead be learned and respected in order to make our own life experiences more interesting and richer. What is cultural value? Well, we remember things in our lives because they have some sort of worth or value to us. We feel that they are important or necessary because they have meaning to us as individuals, as a community, or as a society. In turn, these things then make us feel like we matter, that we're alive. For example, our first kiss, our first holiday abroad, our GCSE results. Due to how we are raised by our families, friends and social institutions, we often feel that we don't have much of a choice about what we should value. However, through a process of socialisation, learning the rules of society, and enculturation, learning the values of society, we have been urged to fit in with those around us and to conform. For example, when we are instructed to wear a shirt, tie and blazer while at school, we learn, rightly or wrongly, to adhere to similarity and authority, rather than difference or rebellion. What are cultural standards? Our ability to judge something as good or bad, right or wrong, is a very powerful human characteristic, and is something which we cannot help ourselves from practicing on a daily basis. This is because not only does it help us make sense of the world around us, it also provides a guide to how we believe life should be lived. It provides and reinforces our standards. Importantly, however, if we are to remain fair, objective and true to ourselves and all that, we should always question where our cultural standards, our sense of good or bad, have originated from. For example, is popular music really better than classical music, or is it just because we're more familiar with it? Is Shakespeare really a better writer than Roald Dahl, or is it just because so-called experts have told us so? Do we really know what is cool or uncool, or are we just following the opinions of the crowd because we don't want to feel left out? What is high culture? A very important part of wider culture is high culture. High culture refers to those products and practices which people in positions of power put forward as the greatest examples of human endeavour and expression, such as art, science, literature, ballet, philosophy. They are complicated and difficult to master, but these are also characteristics which make them very special. Indeed, the 19th century writer Matthew Arnold famously argued that high culture should be the best of what's been thought and said in the world, that it should be the study of perfection. He argued this because he believed, like many others still believe, that by studying, understanding and appreciating such challenging aspects of culture, ordinary people would be cured of their natural bad habits and animal-like tendencies and instead grow to become civilized, sophisticated and successful individuals. Arnold's point of view is important to remember here because it helps explain to us why societies like the UK cherish a formal education system. That is, by studying for our GCSEs, A-levels and an undergraduate degree, for example, we are supposed to be turning ourselves into better human beings, which wider society will then recognise, respect and reward. This is why our qualifications and grades are considered, rightly or wrongly, so important. They are supposed to indicate to others what type and level of person we are on the inside, the skills, experience and values we have learned, and the cultural capital, or wealth of knowledge, we have accumulated. What is the canon? A key aspect in the communication of high culture throughout the education system and, in turn, wider society is the concept of the canon. Devised in part by the Cambridge professor F.R. Leavis, the canon refers to a list of the greatest writers, painters, composers, thinkers, scientists, which experts agree between themselves are the classics, and who set the cultural standards which all others are supposed to follow. For example, Shakespeare, Van Gogh, Mozart, Plato, Einstein, etc. A relevant point to consider here, however, is what gives these experts the right and the power to decide for us what the best is. That Beethoven is better than Rihanna, or that Charles Dickens is better than J.K. Rowling. In turn, why are many of these classic writers, scientists and philosophers and all that nearly always white, male, middle or upper class and dead? This seems to imply that the canon is in fact racist, sexist, snobbish, out of date and irrelevant to most ordinary people's life experiences. In this way, we could argue that high cultural notions like the canon are being used as a form of social exclusion and control, since, rather than liberate us, they force us to follow somebody else's opinions, tastes and values without question. It's interesting that institutional religion often operates in a similar way. Of course, supporters of high culture and the canon would disagree with such criticism, however. They would argue that classic works of science and culture communicate and celebrate something essential about our nation's shared past and identity. They have stood the test of time and as a result have been experienced by many different generations throughout history. It is due to arguments such as these why successive governments have always decreed that all school children in the UK must, at some point during their education, study Shakespeare, whether they want to or not. What is popular culture then? Another important part of culture which we are all familiar with is popular culture. Popular culture refers to those products and practices which are the most widely available and easily understood aspects of human expression, such as Harry Potter, Xboxes, Premiership football, Hollywood blockbuster movies, etc. Supporters of popular culture argue that it brings millions of people together of different ages, genders, ethnicities and educational backgrounds in order to have fun and enjoy themselves. They claim that it is more inclusive and democratic than high culture and is a happy distraction from the stresses and strains of daily life. While this may be true to a degree, isn't it also the case that the only examples of popular culture which we encounter, share and enjoy in our day-to-day lives are those which wealthy corporations, usually based in the United States, have invested millions of dollars in advertising and marketing to us? For example, Microsoft, Apple, Sony, Universal Studios, etc. Furthermore, similar to the criticisms of high culture, what gives these companies the right to decide what books we should read, what music we should listen to, what games we should play, what movies we should watch? By producing cultural products and services which are pretty simple to understand and readily accessible to all, aren't they dumbing us down as an audience and leaving us bored and patronised? In turn, doesn't this reveal that such companies are not really concerned about our inner peace and happiness at all, but instead only care about the money they can make and the profits they can generate for themselves. In this way, popular culture can be seen to be short-lived, lacking in depth, and ultimately worthless. For example, Jedward, Krispy Kremes, McDonald's, etc. It encourages consumers to be selfish, greedy, jealous, and vain. For instance, MTV Cribs, L'Oreal. In turn, it can exclude people who, according to those in power, are not beautiful, energetic, cool, or in fashion. For example, immigrants, old people, X Factor audition failures, etc. But what is ordinary culture then? A final important aspect of culture which we cannot live without is ordinary culture. This refers to those products and practices which people consume or participate on a daily basis without even really thinking about it. For example, eating dinner, catching the tram, texting, going on a night out with friends, etc. The Welsh academic Raymond Williams argued that culture is in fact ordinary, but it is still as important as high or popular culture, worthy of further study, and so should not be ignored or overlooked. Indeed, an analysis of everyday life can reveal people's cultural attitudes, values, beliefs and history. For example, the Great British Sense of Humour, bingo halls, the graffiti on park benches, the brand of alcohol teenagers drink, etc. Interestingly, ordinary culture has many unwritten rules or conventions which we all learn and follow in order for us to know how to behave, where we are from, and where we belong, and what is expected of us. For example, although we have not read a manual or instruction leaflet, we know that it's rude to push to the front of a queue, to speak with our mouths full, with food, or to laugh at a funeral. Indeed, these cultural conventions, usually learned through socialisation and enculturation, are often complex. For example, being able to speak English, are always changing according to time, place and participants. For example, the everyday dress codes of teenagers and pensioners on a night out are vastly different and are usually specific to a particular region and its culture. For example, Mancunian culture is different in many ways to Cockney culture. Anyway, summary time. In this introduction to culture, we have learned the following. Our cultural tastes, what we like and don't like, what we believe is good or bad, cool or uncool, are not necessarily our own personal view or opinion, but relate to what we are taught to value during our socialisation and enculturation. For example, conformity. People in power, politicians, professors, religious leaders, writers, teachers, etc., insist that we experience and appreciate high culture in order to be more civilised and successful in life. For example, by studying A-levels and all that. Popular culture is not simply mass entertainment, but a method for companies and corporations to generate income and profits and to communicate certain ideologies, ways of thinking. For example, greed, vanity, selfishness. Ordinary culture is structured according to unwritten rules or conventions, which we obey and follow, but also often break. For example, being accidentally rude to someone. This indicates that we never stop learning how to live throughout our lives. Right, this has been Northern Chipmunk with an introduction to culture. Hope you've learned something, and subscribe.